We start off episode 12 with impeccable parking at the Summerween Superstore, with Summerween being basically a second Halloween, which the people of Gravity Falls celebrate because they love Halloween so much. And at least according to Grunkle Stan's calendar, Summerween would actually be today, the day this video releases. When the twins are getting a bit suspicious, Suze says that there's candy involved, and the Pines family starts demolishing the store, Suze being really annoying with the electric funny skeleton head in front of the clerk, and we get a little foreshadowing about Stan preparing to scare some children. And of course, in true Pines fashion, they leave the store after paying with the world's most valuable currency, and before the clerk lady gets a chance to call the cops. Back at the shack, the front of the house is all decorated, and the heck part of the lettering is weirdly embossed. Also, Summerween is celebrated with melons instead of pumpkins. Inside the shack, it is revealed that the twins are trick-or-treating kings, apparently, and to keep them on their toes, Suze tells them the story of the Summerween trickster. Apparently someone who goes door to door on Summerween, eating children who lack the Summerween spirit. While listening to the story, Dipper tries some of the candy that's in the bowl and notices that it's loser candy, so basically the knockoff kind, which he promptly throws into the trash, standing outside of the kitchen window, while actually wearing the watch again that he wore in the Fight Fighters episode. While Dipper is throwing out the candy, we get an outside view of someone watching him throw it out. Right before somebody rings the bell at the front door and he goes to open it, revealing Robbie and Wendy, who came to the shack to get Wendy's jacket because she's forgotten it again. Dipper tries acting cool here, like he's not going to go trick-or-treat. And yes, you guessed it right, this is another episode where Dipper tries to impress by being someone he definitely isn't. When Wendy tells him that she and Robbie are going to a party from Tambry, Robbie pulls out an invite, saying that he's not surprised that Dipper didn't hear about it. And yes, of course he didn't hear about it. He doesn't have anything to do with Tambry. They aren't friends, so how should he have heard about it? Duh. Now we get a closer look at the invite, and we see that the first point on the invite, under the big party logo, says not S&P approved. The people who saw my other episodes on Gravity Falls probably already know where this is going, but for the people who didn't, S&P is the Standards and Practices Department, which basically regulates what can and can't be shown in a show. And the original text on the flyer would have said bottles will be spun, but the S&P department didn't approve of this because they didn't want to send the wrong message to their audience. Alex Hirsch, of course, replies that the message is teenagers like kissing, which isn't really a wrong message. And after S&P insists that this should be removed because it could be seen as an invite to a makeout party, Alex says that he wants to replace the phrase with the line, not S&P approved. And after a short back and forth, this line was actually S&P approved. So that's how we got to the point where the flyer now looks like this. Also, there's another line under that one that says no photos better end up online. And, which I found a bit weird, there's a really kind of sleazy looking witch on the side of the flyer, which seems a bit off for a kid's show. And frankly, I can't really figure out why S&P let that go through, but not the bottles will be spun part. And after this whole conversation, Dipper of course makes the most sensible decision, which is to just ditch Mabel. Jumping back into the house to Mabel introducing Granda and Candy to Grunkle Stan. Stan asks Granda if she has a cold or something is wrong with her voice, right before turning around and just leaving. Then we get a short look at the business pig. Of course, Mabel had to dress up Waddles. And right after that, we get to the scene where Dipper comes down the stairs, and I finally get to talk about some decor again, because the dodo in the background got a mask. You know, nothing too fancy, but still there's some changes in the backgrounds. Getting back to Dipper and him ditching Mabel, he doesn't tell her the truth, that he's going to a party, but he also doesn't put up a really good excuse, he just says he feels ill, and it's not convincing at all. And to break up a scene, the door rings, and we get our first look at the Summerween trickster that Suze mentioned in the story. He has a tiny cute mask, a raspy voice, and a chimney-looking hat that you can actually see better in the following shots. And because Dipper feels particularly douchey this episode, he just slams the door in the trickster's face. And after opening and slamming the door in his face the second time he rang, Mabel opens the door for the third time to apologize, but the trickster isn't too keen on apologies anymore and threatens to kill them. And to really bring this point home, he f***ing devours Gorny, the most important character of them all. No, Gorny, no. Anyways, moving on. He tells the gang that they need to collect 500 pieces of candy before the last jack-o'-melon extinguishes. Mabel, as always, finds the best part about a situation where it could potentially die. Here it is, Dipper coming with them to trick-or-treat. Following this, Zeus comes running outside and Candy shows him a picture that she took of the trickster, and she really captured his good side. Oh, and I tried to look up what this Korean character could mean, and frankly it wasn't as easy as I thought. I had to use Google Translate with handwriting because there are so many different combinations of Korean letters. But in the end I found out that this means OMG, which frankly was pretty obvious from the start. After Mabel holds an inspirational speech in front of them, choking a bit on what makes Zeus actually a valuable member of the group, they want to start trick-or-treating, but Dipper still tries to bail. And just to try to put a bit of emphasis on this, there's a monster around that's trying to kill them if they don't bring 500 pieces of candy, and all that this dude thinks about is trying to go to a party to drool over a girl who, if we're being totally realistic here, will not go out with him. This bro is about to get brutally killed, and even though he has the brains to actually understand this, he still tries to chase his crush. So with all this, even though he's being an absolute idiot, I guess you have to admire the dedication at least. But still, I really don't think this is fitting for his character, frankly. Considering the previous episodes, bailing would be one thing. I could see that happening. But actually risking his sister getting killed by a monster does not seem like a Dipper thing at all. I do not think that the character that we saw develop till this point would actually do this kind of stuff. So, after the gang actually leaves to go trick-or-treating, we see Stan frighten some kids standing in front of the door, with two of them actually just not giving a damn and still demanding candy. And we are going to come back to the story, but first, back to the twins, with a fairly interesting overview of the streets of Gravity Falls, where we can see in the upper left corner, there's a little Gorny ring around, even though he just got eaten. In the upper middle part, there's the kids that are supposed to be standing in front of the shack. And in the bottom right, we can see Grenda and Candy, but just without the rest of the gang. And when switching to viewing the actual streets and what's going on at the houses, we see Sheriff Blobs and Deputy Durland walking around dressed as each other. And frankly, the sheriff looks really frightening without his glasses. But maybe that's just me. Now, viewing Lazy Susan's house, we can see 4 kids standing in front of it. And these kids were visible in the overview of the streets as well. We've got the unicorn, Cleopatra and the knight, and the alien. Right after the kids leave, our gang walks up to the house, and after getting everyone's costume wrong, Susan only gives them 1 candy because Dipper apparently still doesn't really appreciate how drastic the situation is. And because Dipper's being an idiot, we need the trickster to emphasize the part where the gang dies if they don't get 500 pieces of candy. And after this scene, I really have to make the point that they absolutely nailed the creepiness of the trickster. The way he's jumping around all floaty and has a body that kind of looks spider-ish, a raspy voice, and this tiny smiley mask that doesn't really fit his whole face and looks really out of place. And he's not horror material in this context. I think he still fits in the whole kids, young adults show theme. but I'm pretty sure it would probably be really easy to actually use him in a little bit different in an actual horror setting. Okay, and we're jumping back and forth. Now back to the kids in front of the mystery shack. Stan comes out again, trying to scare them, this time by using Waddles as an alien fetus replacement. But he then gets scared by one of those generic jumpscare videos that the kids show him, after asking what really scares them. Dipper apparently finally got the point, and starts wearing the costume now, which makes them look like peanut butter and jelly. And with this, they actually rake in the twin bonus candy for everyone. And we also get a little scene of Toby Determined getting shamed for his face. Oh god. Okay, got my composure again. Moving on with it, Dipper is staying with the candy wheelbarrow when the gang goes to fetch the last piece of candy. After they all leave, Wendy drives by, and frankly, I don't know why. Because they were already supposed to be at the party, and they are driving with a car, so they should probably be there quicker than the gang could run through Gravity Falls. It seems a bit odd that they're driving by that place. And of course, he doesn't want Wendy to notice that he's trick-or-treating, so he pushes the candy and costume behind the bushes. Mabel then notices this whole scene unfolding, and is rightfully disappointed, because he intended to ditch her on their favorite holiday. And again, I think it's fine for her to be this hurt, because this would have been a pretty hard backstabbing. And again, I don't think that this would be a thing Dipper would do. Frankly, this is probably my biggest grime with this otherwise great episode, that him being this ignorant just feels really, really out of place. And of course, like in every good show, this candy collection quest just can't go smoothly. And when Mabel asks Dipper where the candy is, they look behind the bushes, where the candy fell into a really dangerous looking river that someone could easily fall into when they walk behind the bushes. Conveniently, right after that, all the jack-o'-melons extinguish, except for one, which is held by McGucket, and Granda tackles him out of existence so that he can blow it out. But as a cliché, cartoonish twist, they sigh in relief and blow it out anyways. So now,
it's trickster time.
When he finds out that they couldn't get the 500 pieces, he transforms into his final form, grabs the kids, and Zeus just drives straight through his grundle. So now, with the trickster destroyed, the ride back will be pretty awkward because Mabel is hurt but still mad at Dipper. And while looking out of the window, of course, psych, the trickster isn't gone. He reforms again into a big booty pear, I suppose. And frankly, I gotta say, this is not nearly as frightening as it could have been. I think they could have really done something different with it after he got smashed into pieces like that. And after getting jumped by the trickster, the episode comes full circle when they drive into the Summerween superstore. Following this, while the gang is hiding, we get an explanation why all this going trick-or-treating or not going trick-or-treating went down. Dipper actually felt too old to go trick-or-treating, besides the fact that he just wanted to see Wendy at the party. But this really seems a bit weird, considering his excitement earlier. So this seems a bit inconsistent. And Mabel responds to this that she sees getting old as even more of a reason to still go trick-or-treating, because these could really be their last times they get to do that. But to actually be able to go trick-or-treating again ever, then to get out of the store and they decide to use costumes to not be seen by the trickster, which seems a bit weird when they could have just hidden behind stuff like they already did. The monster already knows it's them, so even if they wear costumes, it's probably not really going to be confused. And how the hell did the monster not see Candy and Granda hanging there when it just went by them? Now, we already spoke about my grime in this episode, and now we speak about the most infuriating part about this episode, at least in my opinion, which is Zeus being insanely stupid. I know, it's funny that the monster will hear them because he presses the skull thingy and it does a sound, but it seems so out of place, even for Zeus's level of decision making. And of course they had to stretch it out when the batteries are empty. He tries to put in new batteries and Mabel actually screams at him, which probably already should have alerted the trickster if she screams through the whole store, but I guess it doesn't matter. Zeus gets eaten anyways because he presses down the skull, and let's be honest, he kinda deserved it. Why did he do it? He knew what was gonna happen. But of course the gang couldn't leave him hanging, so they start to attack the trickster, and Dipper actually holds a shield that seems to be at least a little bit of a Zelda reference with a triangle on it. But of course also, as we all know, this is our lovely friend Bill. Then the trickster takes off his mask to reveal who he really is. And that is a conglomerate of all the loser candy that got thrown away. And generally I like the face design, though I think they could have used something a bit darker for the eyes. But they did something that makes it look like his brain would be visible, to make it a bit more creepy. So now he tells us backstory, and we see the teenagers from the inconveniencing episode actually throwing all the candy into the dump, which he formed out of. And before he can eat the rest of the gang, we get a repetition of the alien scene when Zeus pops out of his belly, actually liking the candy and eating it, making him cry, which is a little bit awkward, but hey. And then the revelation. Gorny lives! And is actually pretty traumatized. And now the final act of the story, Stan versus the kids that aren't frightened. When the kids enter the house to get their candy, they walk through the house and see Grunkle Stan in boxer shorts right before he wants to wash off the shame of not being able to scare them, when they scamper away, horrified. Totally understandable, by the way. So now the gang gets back to the shack, seeing Wendy actually sitting there, carving a jack-o'-melon, telling them that the party sucked and Robbie had to leave with a stomach ache because he ate a lollipop stick first. And we also get the conclusion to this whole row about the trick-or-treating when Dipper finally admits that he was trick-or-treating with Mabel, not being scared, to actually show that he behaves like someone his age probably would. When Mabel gets a bit down because after all this hassle, they didn't even get to eat any candy, Stan pulls out the huge candy bags that were dropped by the kids, and they all start to eat the candy with the wrappers on. That's probably gonna tickle later. To sum up the whole thing, Stan comes around with a conclusion that Summerween isn't about candy or costumes or scaring people. Summerween is a time where the whole family gets together to celebrate what really matters. Pure evil. Zeus also drops the bombshell that he ate a man alive today, which garners mixed reactions. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls again. As I already mentioned in the last episode, this is probably one of my favorites throughout the whole show. I just love the Halloween aesthetic in every show. I just like it. And I like the story of the trickster wanting 500 pieces of candy, like this little quest they went on. I think this whole thing came together pretty well, again, except for these things with Dipper being more over the top than he needed to be. Same thing with Zeus. Those things were a bit meh, but otherwise, great. So, I hope to see you in the next episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls. Until then, see ya!